Well, Josie, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here. Like I said, you're the first sports therapist here with us. But before we dive into all the good stuff that you've got to share with us, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Okay. Well, no, thanks for having me, Henry. It's lovely to be here. It's great. It's weird, just talking from the computer. But Josie Mitchel. I'm a sports therapist and running coach. I have my own clinic, London Sports Therapy. It's West London based, one in Chiswick and one in Marble Arch. And it's a sports injury and running clinic. Recently rebranded to that. So we specialise in any injury that you may have. So it doesn't necessarily have to relate to sport, and aim to get you moving well. Really, whatever that may mean to you. It may mean that you want to run an ultra marathon. It may mean you're a professional sports person, or it could be someone who wants to go out for a walk in the park, especially during these times. People are desperate to go out walking and making the most out of their day, really. And some people are just getting themselves injured because they've walked more than they would normally do. So it's whatever that has meaning for you. So it's class as sports injury and running clinic, but it's an injury and running movement clinic, really.
I know, and I'm so excited about it because, like I said, the first time you and I met was through a networking event, and you specifically did you teach us how to walk properly. And I laughed because I thought, oh my gosh, after this event, I was going to go and take my dog for a walk. So I had you in the back of my mind constantly about this is how you should walk properly in order to make sure that you don't give yourself an injury. So the whole time, and even till today, that's what I do. So I've got you in the back of my mind every time I walk.
It's good. Yeah, quite a lot of people say that. And it's like if the whole of West London, you'll probably know a lot of the people that's come and seen me because they'll all be walking a certain way. There'll be no hand holding and there'll be less things in their hands and everything in their pockets and less people on the phone.
I know.
They've been told to walk a certain way.
I know, it's brilliant. Now, tell us a little bit about your story, because I know that obviously for anybody who's starting as an entrepreneur, who's starting to run a business, there's always that point in your life where you start something and you'd realize, oh my gosh, this is it. I'm going to run with it. This feels right. This is the business that I want to have. And how has that journey kind of evolved for you to where you are now?
Right. So initially I knew, when I was younger, I didn't have any direction at all. But I forced myself to carry on and do the A-levels. And I thought, oh, well, everyone else is going off to uni. What do I do? And then I was advised to go and do leisure management because I was just interested in sport. Like, okay. And that's what I said to you. It's like I went in, did the leisure management degree. And then after that, I went and found a job within the gym thinking, I'd like to own my own gym. Very general. And I just thought, nah. First year of working, I thought, this is not for me. Put myself through so many hours of working long hours and teaching so many classes that I just thought, no. And then I got injured. Just unsociable hours, not for me. And then I just thought, I'm going to have to do something now because I had my first child by then. And then I just thought, okay, what am I really interested in? And I thought, I'm interested in the science behind the sport. Not quite sure where I'm going with this, but I know I want to learn more of the science. I had no science A-levels. I had maths and English A-level, and that's it. And so I started to research sports science. And then from there, I thought, okay, local university, North London. And then I started to phone up the head of sports science and I said, what can I do to get on this course? He says, well, you can't. You have no A-levels in science. You cannot. You have to do a foundation course and that you have to do full time. I said, well, I can't. Can't afford it. I'm working at the moment as well, have a child. I can't afford full time. And he said, well, there's no other way around it. And I said, well, what if I'm a mature student, I've got this background, that background, I've done this course, that course, they're not A-levels, but I've worked in the industry for how many years? What, just over a year, 2 years? And he said, no. But anyway, I persisted, and eventually says, you know what, you've bugged me for so long, come on the course, come on the degree, sports science nutrition, then part-time. I went, great.
Amazing.
So enrolled. And then because it was part-time, you meant to do 4 modules in every term. I was doing 2, maybe 3 every term. So I was, slowly going through it. And then 1.5 to 2 years in, I was still doing like my first year modules plus some second year modules. And then somebody mentioned to me, there's a sports therapy degree. I'm going to change over. You should look into it. It sounds really great. So I looked into it. I thought, yeah, sounds great. And I then went to the head of sports science. I said, look, I've already done a lot of the core modules. Can I change over? I heard you can. I'm really excited by this. And he said, okay, only if you get excellent grades. And so just dug in and just went for it. And yeah, I maintained the grade and never looked back since. And I think it was because you're part-time, you're seeing people graduate now.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, oh my gosh, everyone's leaving. And then I think 3 years in to doing my part-time degree and changing course, I then started to see light at the end of the tunnel, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, this is for me. I can see it. I can see where this is going. I'm really excited by it. And then I think I may have digressed.
But no, that's interesting because it just shows that there was a drive inside of you, and you just followed your instinct. You just followed your gut and just went for it. And yes, there's trial and error. I mean, thought you wanted to start a gym, but realized very quickly that wasn't for you. But you kept on going on your journey. Talk to us a little bit about how you started then London Sports Therapy.
Yeah. So after I graduated, basically I worked freelance, really, just going into athletics tracks and just had my own little clinic just up the road. And then I did some work experience with Wycombe Wanderers Football Club, and he put me in touch with this, I suppose, really great physio working in West London. He had a really busy clinic. Basically, he treated a lot of famous people. So he was renowned, and so he became the man to go to. So I had the great opportunity of working with him, and so I was with him for 7.5 years. And then I was then approached by other people, well, can you set up my clinic? Can you come and work with me at Marble Arch? I said, well, this is the opportunity for me to leave. And things were changing within that clinic. So I thought, now's the time to leave. It's appropriate for me to leave, and I need to branch out on my own. And then from there, still just Josie Mitchel, sports therapist, started to get really busy. And it was like you said, the confidence builds. Like, people actually want to come see me. They found me. They used to see me with his clinic, and then they found me again. They followed to try and follow me. And so that was great. And then as we got busier, I thought, okay, it can't just be me, because I want to develop something that's not where I'm not a slave to the business. It has to be a name, not just Josephine Mitchell. And so then I came up with London Sports Therapy, and basically it just all went on from then. And then I thought, okay, what's my direction now? After quite a few years of just being London Sports Therapy, people kept asking me, well, what is a sports therapist? What do you do? I know what a physio is. I know what an osteopath is. I know what a chiropractor is. But what do you do? And so I thought, okay, I'm not in any niche here. So with a bit of guidance from a great business coach, I then found my niche, and that's where I became very specific. I didn't want to get rid of the sports injury bit, but I became very specific, like running coach, because I do look at people's movement. I look at people's movement as a whole. That's why people, I suppose, have followed me, just because of the way I work. And yeah, that's how London Sports Therapy, Sports Injury and Running Clinic developed.
I know. And it's phenomenal to hear it as well, because I think it segues very nicely into what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And for those of you listening, you might love this topic, not might, I know you will love this topic. That's partially why Josie is here, because in particular in this time and age, let's face it, we are all sitting so much. So whether you're working from home, whether, you know, when the fog is lifted, you go back and sit in an office, you are sitting a lot. So Josephine here is going to talk to us about the impact of sitting too long. And to be honest, I'm a little bit scared of what you're going to say, because I'm going to go, oh my gosh, that's me. I'm sitting too much. I need to get up more and exercise. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about that? Talk to us about the impact, about what we need to be aware of, and then also what tips you can give us really to get moving.
Yeah. People often ask me, well, the impact of sitting really is that you become very anterior dominant. Basically, the front of your body becomes the area that just works constantly. We're in an age where mobile phone age, iPad, laptop age, everything is in front of us and everything is at a touch of a button. We don't have to get up and change the TV anymore, change channels back in my day. And so we sit, and everything in the front of our body becomes dominant, from where we're sitting with our legs down, no matter if your feet are up on a stool or anything, your hips then change position, because this muscle, the hip flexors, the quads shorten. And as a result, when you do stand up, they stay shortened. And so your pelvis tilts in a very different way. And therefore, certain muscles at the back of your body stop working. And so that's when people, especially now during this lockdown, people end up feeling discomfort, because they decide to walk more than they usually would during a normal day-to-day, their day-to-day activities. The average steps used to be about 4,000 per day. Now, I think people are walking a hell of a lot more in one go. And so this is where they start to feel niggles, because certain muscles in the back of their body aren't working, from their glutes. People talk about the glutes strengthening, the muscles at the back of their shoulders, all the way down the back to their hamstrings and to their feet. Everything changes. So your postural muscles change, because you actually get used to using only the muscles that you need to sit.
Yeah.
And people often ask, what's the right chair to use? And I've known throughout the years of working, people have spent thousands on desks and chairs. Do I sit on a Swiss ball? Or I went to this shop to buy a really great chair. I spent loads of money. It's comfortable. But all that does is just encourages you to sit more. Yes, your pelvis may be tilted in a slightly more optimal way, but really and truly, it doesn't really do the job. It doesn't quite cut it. We, as humans, actually are moving creatures. We've been built to move. And so when we try to move after sitting for any length of time, we may then feel that creak, and then we only walk, catching up on our social media or Instagram with our phone in our hand or a cup of coffee in our hand. That's a new one. And so the arms, the muscles in the back of the arms switch off. The muscles in the glutes don't work so properly. We then lean forward, chin poke. Then we can get neck pain, back pain. So tips to help with sitting for any length of time. It is, one, people have heard this before. Get up more often, move around, but not just move around just to go to the toilet. I mean, get up, maybe change position of your workstation. People are now, a lot of people are getting used to buying a stand-up, sit-down desk. Some people I've encouraged to actually, if they're working on a desktop or not a laptop, I've encouraged for them to kneel down on cushions so they protect their knees, so that their elbows and their shoulders are propped up by the table, but they're kneeling in front of their laptop or their desktop, rather than just sitting with their hips flexors shortened and their quads tightening up. So it's just a change of position. or I get them to move their laptop and put it on something higher, and they can stand and work for a little while. You know, these things are sometimes manageable, just needs a bit of imagination.
Yeah.
But sometimes I understand that people's life at work doesn't enable them to do that. So what they can then do is take a break and do certain stretches, like a hip flexor stretch. But I encourage more active stretching rather than passive stretching. That means moving into their stretch, moving in and out of their stretch. Hip flexor one, it's great. Getting them to go into child's pose, doing some yoga moves. There's some really great yoga moves like the child's pose, which are really nice, opening up their diaphragm, opens up their back a lot more. And things like stretching out the calves, believe it or not, because if you get really tight up here, your calves and your feet tighten up because you're not really using them. It's just the postural muscles change, and therefore the other muscles that enable you to move also will stiffen up because they're becoming active.
That's amazing. But the thing is what I just find is, as you were talking, I find myself almost here, like kind of sitting a little bit more up and kind of just stretching, and then thinking, oh, I'm very bad at crossing my legs when I sit. So I'm thinking, don't cross your legs, put your feet back up. But it makes so much sense of what you're saying, because even as a forefront, one of the things that a lot of people do, and I know I'm trying to be very conscious of it, I didn't always do it, but you slant forward. Your face, your chin, everything goes forward, your shoulders come forward. And that's what, you know, so as soon as you stand up, your back almost aches. You go like, oh, my back's so sore because I've sat too long. And that makes sense of what you're saying, because those muscles are shortening, not just from the hips down, but the back so much more. And is that the
more lengthening? Yeah.
And is that the reason why so many people would have back problems if they're sitting too long as well then?
Well, when they sit too long, the muscles at the back are kind of more, if you slump forward, it's kind of more in a stretched position. But what's happening lower down is, if the hip flexors are connected onto your lumbar spine, if they shorten, they pull on your lumbar spine. So you see a lot of people with this kind of duck back or duck bump because they overarch their back. And that's not because, I don't know, people say, oh, I've got this kind of posture because that's the way I was born. It's partly because certain muscles, well, that could be genetics, but certain muscles are overworking and pulling their position of their back in a wrong position. And so when you try to use your back, it's trying to, when it's lengthened, it's trying to pull you back because it's kind of stretched for a long time. It's really difficult for me to show you in the seat position. I'm always, when I'm working, I'm in a clinic and I'm moving around and I'm demonstrating, and it's so difficult. I mean, I found this lockdown very, very like, because I'm so zoomed out. I'm doing online consults and stuff and helping people online, but I'm sat down and I'm not used to it.
Yeah.
And so when I get up, I try to stretch out and I try to get moving. But yeah, it's not so much it's shortened at the back. It's more of a case that their pelvis is being tilted, the back muscles under strain, because it's trying to stop you from toppling over. Because if you imagine they're there, you're meant to be balanced. This is meant to work the same as that. But this is shortened, and that's trying to stop you from toppling over. It's trying to bring you back up against gravity.
Oh my gosh!
And so that's why it's just a slight imbalance, and we all know what it means to keep balanced, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, if I can throw this in here, because obviously you said this, and which is why I mentioned it earlier, and you talk about how to walk properly.
Yeah.
So can you give us a couple of tips on that as well? Because let's face it, we're telling people now, don't sit too long, go and walk, make sure you stretch your muscles. But there's also quite something there, technique also, that we need to be very conscious of as to how we walk.
Exactly. Because so if you don't have any kind of joint issues, so knee replacements, hip replacements and things, then by all means use this technique. You know, think about this technique. The pace that you're meant to be walking in order to get the so-called benefits is about 100 steps a minute. I think I got that right, or 5.5 kilometers per hour. Okay, it's meant to be something where you'll find that you're you're breathing quite heavily, so that kind of speed. The other thing is arms. The arm position is, a lot of us now tend to walk with our palms facing behind us, and we look like we're paddling with our hands. So what I would encourage you is that you turn the palms and make sure that your palms are facing your thighs. And if you're in a park, grab some sticks. That's always great to do, because it stops this increased elbow flick that people often get. This elbow flick is in front of their body. So once your arm is in the right position and the palms are facing the thighs, that automatically takes you from a rounded position back. So you don't have to be conscious of, shoulders back. A lot of people do that. I've got to bring my shoulders back. No. Just turn the palms, face your thighs. Palms face your thighs. And at that point, you've got to do an extension of the shoulder, so that we encourage movement of the shoulder. So it's just a matter of getting the shoulder to extend back. Just move, let the motion of the shoulder come back, because you'd be surprised if you get your partner to film you walking, you will find that there may be one arm just not working at all, and one arm overworking and over flicking.
And that tends to normally the dominant hand, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's because it's compensating. There's a compensation going on. You prefer one side, or you're used to carrying a handbag on one side, or a coffee, or a mobile phone. That's usually it. And we're in this coffee era of grab a cappuccino, skinny latte, go off to work with your refillable cup. and that's what happens at your handbag, mobile phone, and you get this flick going on. So I would say hands free, palms facing thighs, shoulder extension at least about 30, 40, 45 degrees ideal, and not too much of an elbow flick. And just walk like that. Think about the arms rather than the legs first. I think that will automatically also bring, from being sat down, the shoulder extension brings your neck up and brings your head up.
I know. And I love it, because when you and I spoke last time, and I said to you, I take my dog for a walk, the first thing you asked me is like, where do you put the leash? I was like, yes. Where do I put the leash? I carry it. But that makes sense then, because as soon as I didn't have anything in my hands, I put the leash around my hip or around my neck, but then immediately my hands went towards, sort of, how can I say, I flicked my wrists, so they're more towards my thighs, and immediately I noticed my shoulders went back and my whole posture changed, but also it felt so good. And then my breathing increased. I felt that I could breathe better as well. So it was almost like a conscious thing that I was thinking of, and I'm trying to make a conscious thing of the way I'm walking now with your help, because I want to get into that habit of, I don't have to think about it anymore. It needs to become a subconscious thing. It needs to become a habit. But that's my kind of like challenge every day. I take my dog for a walk. It's like, good. Shoulders back, flick the wrists and go for it. And don't carry anything in my hands.
No, that's really, really good. It's amazing that you keep thinking about it, because it's not easy. A lot of people, they end up reverting back to their old style quite quickly. It's interesting that. So as I'm warming them up, do it before their running drills, because you've got to be able to walk before you can run, right? Mm-hmm. So this is why I look at their walking before their running technique. And I said, right, you've got to change this, because this is going to encourage those muscles to work. So, but they then revert back of this increased elbow flick, a wrist flick, and things like that. And so I get them to think about it just a lot more often. I said, just have a quick body check when you're out there walking. Just make sure that you're walking right. Watch the elbow, and watch the flick of the wrist. Some people have that. And so yes, it is interesting how it's not an easy habit to form, because it's a completely alien thing to what people are generally used to, because they've never really had to be taught how to walk. But I think in this day and age, in this generation that we're living in, this era, I think we do have to be taught how to walk again.
Yeah,
really.
no, I agree. Because I mean, since you're a child and you take those first steps, they encourage you to walk, but there's no encouragement as you get older on how to walk with the right posture.
Yeah.
So I think it's so important that you're saying that. And for those of you listening, I hope you're taking away some great tips for yourself, because yes, I know I always talk about business. We always talk about strategies, what you can do for your business, but oh my gosh, you have to look after your own health. You can't run a business if you don't look after your own health, which is why I'm so excited and so glad Josie is here, just sharing these great tips. Josie, thank you so, so much. I just quickly want to recap what Josie said. So obviously, you're sitting too much, and we all know it. If you're a business owner, you know it, and I know it, okay? I'm just as guilty. I put my hand up for that. So what you need to start consciously think about how you're sitting, but then also about changing your positions. Josie gave some great examples about either standing on your knees, putting your knees on some cushions, so you could obviously just extend yourself and then work from your desk that way, or get some boxes and stack them on your desk so you can stand with your laptop there and work, or go to a counter in your house, which is much higher, where you can stand and work. And take some breaks, go for walks. I do it diligently every single day. I take my dog for a walk every afternoon, and it is great. Apart from just being refreshed up here, you're taking oxygen to your body.
Yes.
And you're obviously helping with those muscles, lengthening those muscles again, just like Josie said. And the tips that Josie gave on walking, oh my gosh, flick the wrists, make sure the palms are facing your thighs, and then automatically your shoulders will go back and you'll just feel so, so good. Just challenge yourself, just try it out, okay? Just today, after you've listened to this podcast episode, or whenever you're listening to it, next time you go out, challenge yourself and take these steps that Josie's given. And let us know feedback. I mean, I'd love feedback. If you felt great after a walk using these tips, let me and Josie know. We'd love to hear from you. Josie, do you have any last tips that you want to share with the audience before we conclude and say goodbye?
Yes. I mean, the health benefits of walking are huge. It's not just from a musculoskeletal point of view. It's to do with mental. It's to do with cardiovascular, so your heart, diabetes even, blood circulation, as we all know, because of the oxygen. But also, just when you get out there, you can actually just switch off, especially now. Just switch off, because if we're constantly switched on with our social media, because we're now stuck indoors and working online all the time, it's amazing what that actually does to our brain. We become so tired and so strained, I think, and we do need to switch off and actually, be at one with nature. That you'd be surprised. It's the little things that count. And the other little tip, there was something that's gone out of my head. It was to do with the walking. When you go out there and walk, you think about, don't worry about so much. If you find that the technique is hard, just go out and just walk. It's fine. Just go out and don't be pressured to walking too fast. But one thing I would just say is just turn the palms of your hands to face your thighs and just pick up some sticks. So if all fails, just do that. And then just think, okay, how are my arms moving? Just be a bit mindful of how they are moving, and then think about it. And then if you're like, okay, I can see that change. If you want to know more, you just do some more research and just give us a call and give us some feedback and ask for more tips. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who would like to know more, Josie has obviously got a fantastic website. You can go have a look there. I think you've got some great videos and tips there as well. But then she's also available on Facebook. She's available on Instagram. So there's so many ways you can go and connect with Josie. Or even if you just want to give us some feedback, you're more than welcome to go at the bottom of this video or of this podcast and just give us some feedback and just let us know, if you had any great takeaways from this episode. But Josie, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time for being here. It's been phenomenal. I've learned so much from you. It feels like every conversation we have, I just learn so much from you. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart.
I've loved it.
Good. Okay. And for everyone here watching the video, go down below my show notes, go and connect with Josie. I'm sure she'd love to hear from each and every one of you. Josie, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be in touch fairly soon again.